So, in part one of this conversation with Julie Faulkner, which I will link in the description, we had a great talk about how quickly AI accelerated in the public discourse around teaching and especially teaching English, but also things that teachers should be aware of when they are selecting to use AI materials, AI based materials in their classroom. So, in this part of the conversation, we're going to get into talking to our students about using or not using AI in their work. And I thought Julie had some amazing insights here as well. Plus, make sure you watch to the end for a really fun lightning round, just English teacher talk kind of thing. So I think you'll totally find that relatable if you also do this job. But thank you so much for watching part one and part two. And special thanks to Julie again for agreeing to have this conversation with me to share with all of you. Okay, so now let's maybe chat about the student side of this. So, I mean, there's a lot of discussion in probably every school district now about course policies or school policies for AI use. And I kind of wonder if for students that have been in high school for the last couple years, if it's just something that, oh, it's just almost like a dress code policy. It's just a policy and sometimes they follow it, sometimes they don't, and maybe there's consequences, maybe there's not. But how are you talking to your students directly about AI and what it can and can't do, or the risks of it or the benefits of it? How are you addressing it with them if you are?
Yeah, so several different ways here, I think, to answer this question. First of all, with specifically with the AP language students, right out of the gate, basically the first thing that I tell them is you cannot take the bot with you to the test. So don't get in the habit of relying on that bot if you care about your score at all. And then we do an exercise that shows them how valuable those scores can be down the road to get that buy-in. In some cases, I've allowed them to, if it's not a timed essay, to use like a Grammarly extension. And we talk about what Grammarly offers and what the difference is in taking its suggestion and making that your own or just letting it redo. One of the policies that I have with my Comp 1 students in the dual enrollment class is if they are going to use a program like Grammarly, for example, then they have to provide me the original and then they have to provide me the copy after that it's been checked. I do know some people are allowing students to show sort of a progression when it comes to a policy. If you start with ChatGPT or some sort of AI created essay, then you have to show every step of the way how you've humanized it. I know the college that I teach with, the partner in college, there is a policy regarding AI, but ironically, the AI checkers aren't reliable for checking AI. So it's hard to find, it's hard to prove that a student has done or hasn't done, the whole essay using the bot. So that's kind of a sticky. So we just kind of talk about what that looks like from start to finish and why it's inappropriate to in a course where you're supposed to learn writing to let someone else write your paper. Of course, having students putting information in front of students. I just released or just posted a nonfiction reading comprehension lesson on AI. Is it a friend or a foe?
Oh, I bet that's good for
Yes.
the younger students too, just getting into high school.
Yes. And thinking about writing too, I'll just tell a quick little story. My Comp 1 students, they have access to, and they just finished their first essay, and they have access through their college to tutor.com. And I was telling them, guys, you have 8 free hours. I need you to go in and do this. I'm offering extra credit. These people are very helpful. And one student said, okay, but is it a bot or is it a person? And I said, well, what do you
Hmm.
prefer? And they said, well, we want a person. And so I said, okay, this is good. This is good news. And so I think when students begin to realize the quality of what they get from a human versus a bot, and they build their own confidence that way, then you have a little bit more buy-in with them. And also I think when they know the assignment is not busy work and that you're going somewhere with it for a purpose, for a reason, they're also more likely to avoid the bot.
Well, and that leads in really well to my next question about, how do we build students' confidence in their own voices as writers so they don't feel this need to rely on it? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like it's not when I've had some instances of students trying to pass off AI writing as their own, it's not the confident writers doing it. It's the ones that are struggling, and I mean they're not seeking help usually, they're not putting forth that effort, but they just don't feel good about their writing, and they think this is going to give something better or some better output than what they can do. So yeah, how do we get them to trust that even if it's not the best in the class, their own voice is still better than something that an AI tool can try to replicate or replace?
And I think that's a really good question too, because as just a writing teacher, if I were just thinking about how to teach writing or mentoring someone on how to teach writing, I think that is the piece that makes it so hard for students anyway, because it's such a
Hmm.
vulnerable thing to do. And so I'm just very careful in the beginning to give positive feedback, to only look for certain
Hmm.
things. I don't mark papers up right away. I also think modeling helps, letting them see what other students have written, let them see what a bot has written, and just to show how much more colorful and to also I think students are relieved when I tell them, "You can be kinda quirky, that's okay, be yourself, like, I want yourself,
Yeah.
I want you." And just giving them just really building them up in the beginning, which takes a lot of time and, empties the bucket, to fill their bucket up,
Hmm.
but that's, I think, a huge part of becoming a good writer is getting that confidence, and so and they do, you know, believe it or not, kids do want approval from their teachers. And so,
Absolutely.
not to inflate myself as a teacher, but they do want to know that they've done well. And so that's a good way to build up their confidence.
The next part I want to talk about is coping with in this environment where we know a lot of kids come in and maybe all they did last year was use AI. I think it's going to get more common. How can we design our writing assignments to perhaps discourage AI misuse before it even becomes an issue?
Yeah, and that's something that, you're always just developing. And I feel like, unfortunately, sometimes we're having to be reactive rather than proactive.
Hmm.
But if I think about how to be proactive, this is not always possible in AP Lang. I feel like because we have so much going on and so little time. But with my Comp 1 students in the dual enrollment class, there is always some sort of real life or presentation piece that brings their writing back around. And so they really
Mm.
have to think about, how am I going to dig into all of this information and then also present it. Another thing that I'm able to do with them is they have any kind of source that they use, it has to come from that college's library, online library. And so that prevents some of those faux resources or faux sources that show up from the bot. So I think that helps. But then with AP Lang, a lot of times I feel like chunking and sort of doing checkpoints. And I do this with the dual enrollment students too. Checkpoints along, you can see it sooner if they're using the chat GPT or whatever. And I think that helps prevent. And you can kind of check it, or, you can kind of catch it early.
Well, and also, if you think about it, if you're breaking it up and not just saying, 5-page essay due Friday.
Mhm.
Good luck, and it's like, hey, let's see your introduction today. Do it in class. Or, this is the piece we're working on. It kind of helps them have more manageable goals. I think a lot of our kids
Yeah.
that struggle with executive functioning or overwhelm or anxiety, that really supports them too, just as good classroom
Mhm.
practice. So, I
Yes.
mean, really double win for that.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said, with the timing, that's another sort of tool that we still have in our tool belt for the AP courses is that they are
Mm.
timed, and so they do that in front of us, and I think that helps with preventing them
Yeah.
from using because they I can see their screens, and our school has ChatGPT blocked, so that's at least
Mhm.
somewhat helpful.
Yeah. And I think those kinds of tools and policies districts are starting to adopt and make it a little bit easier for us to put those guardrails in place so we're not constantly chasing it down. We can do that without creating a gotcha, environment all the time.
Mhm.
So I guess, and we're gonna this has been like, I feel like we could talk the philosophy of this just for hours and days because really what we're getting into is what's good writing instruction. And I think I kind of wish people would have this conversation outside of English and all these other departments too, because it'd solve a lot of their problems for them if they did that as well. But I'm just kind of curious, just what do you think? I mean, you've taught, you said, for over 20 years, and I haven't been at it as long, 13 years. But, I was just thinking about the kinds of conversations we've had about English teaching 10 years ago and what we're having now. What do you think we're going to be talking about with AI in English in 5 years, or something else in English in 5 years?
I just don't I don't know what is coming down the pike. I do think that we are probably going to see a shift in the way students are assessed, state testing, etc. There are already changes coming to ACT, for example. They've already moved online and now things are changing content wise, expectations. So I almost feel like expectations may be lowered, and I think we've already seen that as a pattern as well, unfortunately. And Fahrenheit 451, when Beatty sort of reflects to Montag on what was and what is now. And so I just think that we're going in that direction of reading comprehension, reading ability, and along with that is the writing. So I just watched a funny reel and shared it on my Instagram this week when you rely on ChatGPT for everything. And he's just in a gas station and the guy's like, can I help you? And he's like, asking ChatGPT what to say, and I'm thinking, I really hope that we don't go there, but I feel like at this point, it's one of those things that once you've opened Pandora's box, you can't put it back.
Well, the one thing I love about YouTube is it will live on. So maybe in 5 years, we can go back and kind of see, okay, well, I'm going to end this on a lightning round
Okay.
of some English teacher questions, if you don't mind. I'm always just curious to kind of get a little bit of, I guess, color from another English teacher's life. What do you like? What are you into? So these are kind of my off the wall English department lightning round questions. First one, do you have a favorite literary or poetic device?
I think probably for me, and I think this is probably just because it's my personality and who I am, I would just have to say anecdote because I am always telling a story. So it's just that's just me. So I cannot
That's a
have a
good one.
conversation without just breaking out into some kind of story. And then recently just kind of digging into AP Lang, this is just maybe one that I'm more impressed with when I see it come up is the chiasmus. And I just love that little
Oh,
flip, that little play on words. And there are a couple of songs that I've heard that in and speeches and when pastors are giving messages and they can do that. I just think that is so impressive. So I think probably those. I had to pick two. Sorry, I couldn't just pick one.
you got to define chiasmus for people who are like, oh, I know it, but I don't remember it from rhetoric.
Yeah, it's just that little flip, all for one for all. You can physically draw that out. So, yeah, I think those are fun.
It's in Macbeth, right? Fair is foul and foul is
Yes, that's
fair. Is that
actually an example
chiasmus?
that's
Yeah.
on my slide. So, when I teach that one,
Very
yeah.
nice. All right, next one. Favorite beverage for a grading marathon?
Yeah, if I'm not having a coffee, iced or hot, then I'm having a Coke Zero. So, Yeah, I usually will make the trip down to the vending machine and get the Coke Zero when I'm at school. Yeah.
Relevant to our previous conversation, if ChatGPT were a student, what grade would it be earning right now in your class?
I think a C at best, C minus. Like I said, I do really well to build the students up, like we talked about before, but I'm also very picky. And I think in that regard, it teaches my students to, like we said before, also to have that voice and that personality and be creative. And I just don't think ChatGPT is creative.
I agree. C seems
Yeah.
generous, really. Like that seemed, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is my last one for you. What Shakespeare play, in your opinion, would make the best Netflix
Hands
series?
down, I don't even have to second guess or debate. There are no second choices. I only have one answer, and that is Macbeth.
Yes, that's my answer
Macbeth
too.
is my favorite.
Can you imagine just a backstory episode on the witches and
Oh,
we learn about, all of their dealings with Hecate and all?
yes, and the thing is, it's alluded to so much. It's alluded to in
Hmm.
Taylor's new album as well. So I was
It
impressed.
is. I'm glad you caught that too. It's also in Hamilton. And so when we get to some of that, my kids are like, oh my gosh, I get the song now.
But there's just not a good version of it at all. I've seen it, like I said, done a couple. I've watched the movies where it's been done or where it's been recreated or tried to be brought into a modern day, and just no one has done it. So I think,
Yeah, we're overdue for a
yeah,
good Macbeth.
we are.
As someone who's taught Macbeth for 12 of the last 13 years, we're overdue. We need to get like Boz Lerman on it and go for like, because he did Romeo and Juliet and The Great Gatsby.
Mhm.
So maybe he has like a weird kaleidoscopic interpretation of Macbeth
Yes,
that's still somehow PG-13,
right.
so we can show it.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I think we are definitely of one accord in a lot of those. Well, hey, Julie Faulkner, thank you so much. And if people want, I'm going to put all of your information and can I share a link to that AI lesson for
Yes.
students you were talking about too?
Yes. Do.
Awesome. I will put that in the description of this video. And where can people find you on Instagram if they want to see the reel you're talking about and all the other wonderful things that
Yeah,
you share there?
so I'm Julie's Classroom Stories, and it's that on Instagram and Facebook. And then, like I said, my blog is juliefaulknersblog.com. So I'm just super simple. It's just my name and my face. So you should be able to type that in and find me there.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for being the
Thank
first guest on
you.
the English Department channel. And enjoy your
Yes,
weekend.
you too. Absolutely. Thank you.